Your girl got hit with a cease and desist letter. Let's talk about it. So, there was a gentleman that contacted me through the internet. And he said he wanted me to list his property. And I said, okay. So I did all the things, pulled the title and all of that, and everything matched up. And I asked him, where was he located? He told me Ohio. And I said, okay, are you going to come here for a closing, once the house goes under contract? And he said he would like to do a remote. And that was nothing out of the ordinary. Not only did we go back and forth on email, we got on a phone call as well, a couple of phone calls. So again, just a normal day in the life of being a real estate agent, right? And so I was marketing the home, went out and called my photographer because we're dealing with land. So it's just not going to be regular pictures. So she does drones. So I said, okay, I need you to go out and go ahead and do the drone, take the pictures. And she did, sent them to me and put it on the market. And started getting some interest in it. Maybe almost a week into it being listed. And so there was these gentlemen that wanted to see the property. And it was an undeveloped piece of land, but it was around some houses in a rural part of Georgia. And so I told my sister when I got the call that they wanted to meet, I said, okay, that's fine. We'll meet. And for those that want to know, I do carry, been licensed to carry for about 5-6 years now. And so something in my spirit said, and so I said, okay. So we set out that day to go and meet. I always like to get, even if it's somebody I know, I always like to get to the property before they get there so I can just be in position and ready. And so we got there, and that's exactly what we did. Got out of the car. It was in a dirt road, but there were houses around it, but they were kind of like off. You couldn't really see like the front porches of, the homes. But it was nestled in a neighborhood, but it had like these 10 acres of raw land. And so up the hill, I see some guys coming down in a black truck. And so I was like, okay, that must be them. But one of the guys was out walking. So I was like, okay, they must have been on, on up there, whatever. So anyway, the gentlemen get out. And for the sake of whether the race of the people, that doesn't matter, right? So I'm just going to say these guys get out of the car, out of the truck, and, they introduce themselves. And I was like, okay. And the one guy named, I'll just say his name was Jason, who I had been conversing with. And I said, okay. So he was on the phone with someone. And the other two guys were, they were, seasoned older guys. And so we started talking about the land, and I let them know, hey, listen, I've never met the owner. We've only talked, and I know he's ready to sell because he has a project that he says he's getting ready to do. So as we're sitting there, one of the guys says, well, can we give you $550 for it? And I, just kind of like, So while he's saying that, the other gentleman that I've been talking to hands me a paper, and he said, you have no right to sell this property. And so I'm confused now because I'm like, what? So I opened the package, and it's a cease and desist letter. I said, okay. I said, I'm confused. Let's stop. And so I just leaned back on the car because I'm just like, okay. Now, I go back to asking out, what is your name? Because I'm hearing the guy that he's talking to over the phone. And he says that he calls the owner's name. He said he's been dead for years. That was the granddad. And I was like, wait a minute. Well, who the heck am I been talking to? And so they realized that your girl truly didn't know what the hell was going on. So I said, wait a minute. So the person that I've been talking to that said that his name is XYZ is not who he say he is. And so they say, yeah, that's our granddad's been dead for years. I was just like, oh my gosh. I said, this is weird. I've never had this to happen in all of the 20 plus years I've been in real estate. And so it was funny because, then we just started talking. And let me just say this. They were never mean to me. Not that it matters, but they knew that I didn't know I had been probably tricked as well. And so one of the guys goes to say, like, this is like the third or fourth time that somebody's tried to sell the land. So I said, y'all don't have it in a trust, or you don't have, there's no will in place. And they was just like, no. And I was like, whoa. I said, again, I go to tell them how we met, how this guy met me, because I always like to ask someone when they reach out to me online, how did you find my name? Because for me, it's about marketing. Because if you found me on this platform or that platform, or maybe you saw something I posted, then that's where I need to put more of my marketing dollars to. And so he told me he found me on the website. So again, I've had website leads that turned into transactions. So I was just like, okay, I showed them the deed. I said, yeah, when the attorney sent over the deed, because like I always tell y'all, when I list property, whether it's land or single family, condo, whatever, I always get the attorney to send me the deed. Let me see how, who's on the title, who's on deed and all that. So I sent that to him, and I said, it was very dated. It wasn't up to date, but I guess too, because this land has been around for years. It's owned by family. And, I told him, I said, listen, one thing you're not going to have to worry is that I'm going to fight you on this. I will, as soon as I get back home, immediately remove this from the MLS. I have no problem with that. Again, I'll take the hit, because they didn't hire me to take pictures and all of that. The man on the other line. And so, again, sometimes we work with people that don't sell their home, and, sometimes we recoup and sometimes we don't. But I'm just one of that's part of my marketing dollars. So we stood there and we just had some conversation, and, was going to try to help them out, try to do something around the way, but it was going to be too costly of a thing. And, just told them that they're going to have to get with the probate or estate attorney to see what they need to do to protect their property. But this is what happens when you have property that's just out there. And this particular tract of land was undeveloped, just sitting there. And so this is why I say it's important how you take title. If you have property, real estate is such a big deal. You need to have a will in place. You need to have trust. I say trust. You need to have trust in place over your property, because with the way the world is now, people close deals out of state. They don't come to the closing table. And the capability of being able to produce an identification, people's faces are online. You can go and exactly what this guy did is create an ID and, send it over. It's so much stuff that happens in our world, and real estate being one of them. And so when I called the attorney, she was like, Trasha, she said, you would imagine what has happened all the time that, since I've been in real estate, where she said deals have actually closed where we've had to go back and, undo it. And I see it on the news, and I reported it here. People, squatters and things like that, or people at the tax office signing off on your deed and pretty much handing your house over, and then you having to go and fight for it. So I'll just say that is something that just happened recently that just kind of threw me for a loop. It didn't throw me for a loop in that it slowed me up in working. It just like the nerve of people that go to the lengths that they go through to scam and fraud people and steal. And so, and it was so funny because the gentleman did ask me, did I know the notary that was on the paperwork? And I said, no, I don't. And he said, well, she knew you. And she told me I wasn't going to have any trouble out of you. And that's the one thing that made me feel good, because my name, I do good business. And I don't, yeah, again, I got into business because I got scammed. I got frauded. And so I'm definitely not going to go back and get in the business and do that to others. So if you have property, whether it's occupied, unoccupied, being rented out, land or whatever, get that property in a trust. I'm not giving any type of, I'm not an attorney, I'm a licensed real estate broker, but I just realize, I just feel like situations like this is gonna happen more and more and more. You've got to protect your assets. It's not enough just to say, we got land, we own a house, I got a deed, because as you all can see, there's people that's just sitting around ready to take it from under you. And some have been successful in doing that. My name is Latrasha Bostic. I'm a licensed real estate broker here in the state of Georgia as well as Alabama. But check this out. I'm also a mortgage loan originator, which means I can also get you to the bag. I can get you to the money, all right? So if you like what I shared with you, consider giving me a thumbs up and consider subscribing so the next time a video is dropped, you'll be notified. And sharing is caring. You know somebody that could benefit from this information, please feel free to go ahead and share and have them come over here and join us, all right? So I appreciate y'all. Till next time.